Salve ragazzi, eccoci qua su una nuova puntata del Calice Nero. Buonasera Adime, ben arrivato. Oggi ci divertiremo.
Buonasera, buonasera.
Allora, sono Macamante, Porco Dio, Nicola Rosetti, D1 a 6 LO, L0, LO, Edward, Edward. Vabbè, oggi ci divertiamo alla grande. Allora, Adime, la prima domanda che mi viene da chiedere appunto a Mr. Morbid degli Happy Days, oggi un gruppo, uno dei migliori gruppi, assolutamente una delle migliori band del depressive black metal, quindi siamo veramente onoratissimi. Partiamo. Cosa succede? Gracchio?
Sì, Gracchi ancora, stanno notando che...
Nessun problem.
Ok.
Anche al telefono. La prima domanda, la discografia degli Happy Day, appunto. Quindi vogliamo sapere tutto sul mondo Happy Day. Prego.
Okay, so you are one of the most notorious names when it comes to black metal, depressive black metal. First off, it's an honor to have you here on Il Calice Nero. So thanks a lot for spending some time with us. The first question that Il Maestro is making is if you can talk about your discography a little bit in general for the ones who don't know you, since you have quite a prolific discography up to now.
Sure, absolutely. So, just to kind of give a little bit of a history for those who have been who haven't been following me since day one, I started originally Happy Days in 2004. I wrote the first 3 demos and the first album when I was only 13. Unfortunately, due to the fact that I was too young to obviously have connections with anybody to record or mix and master, I would say probably the first 3 albums, or probably even 4, were rawly mixed because unfortunately, due to my inexperience with mixing and mastering, unfortunately, I couldn't get them to the quality that I would have preferred. But everything was kind of self done essentially because it was kind of one of those things where I was trying my hardest to make sure that, you know, I could capture as much as I could with the limited equipment that I had at the time available. So with regards to the albums, I just tried my best to make sure that, you know, they were 110% honest and, you know, with not just the music, but especially with the lyrics. Happy Days has always been kind of like a diary for me in the sense where all of my anxiety, all of my, you know, struggles that I currently went through during the past that I'm currently going through now are jotted down within the music and within the lyrics of the music.
So you basically went for the DIY kind of approach until, let's say, because you were including maybe Cause of Death even as an album?
Yes. Most of the earlier albums or the earlier works, it's not that I didn't necessarily want to do a DIY sort of thing. Ideally I would have preferred to record in a studio, but because of the fact that I just, you know, growing up as a poor musician and not having any access to any sort of studio or even being able to afford to go to a studio, unfortunately most of the albums that I recorded in the earlier times were just at home because I had no other choice.
So it has been out of necessity basically.
Correct.
Ok, praticamente Happy Days inizialmente è appunto nato come un progetto suo solista nel 2004, quando appunto lui aveva intorno ai 14-15 anni, quindi è nato più o meno in quel periodo. E lui per non tanto questioni di volontà ma questioni logistiche ha dovuto approcciare le registrazioni fino a più o meno il 2012. Appunto io accennavo all'album Cause of Death Life del 2012. Praticamente lui non avendo modo di andare in uno studio vero e proprio fino ad allora si è dovuto arrangiare con quello che riusciva, appunto con anche proprio mix, mastering, eccetera, eccetera. E quello che gli è sempre interessato per quanto riguarda questo progetto è mantenere un'onestà sia dal punto di vista musicale che soprattutto dal punto di vista di testi, perché comunque appunto parliamo di black metal / depressive black, parla di cose che lui personalmente ha vissuto e che ancora sta vivendo nella sua vita, che quindi comunque sono tematiche sicuramente molto personali, quindi appunto mantenere un'onestà al 110%, nonostante le limitazioni, quelle del caso.
Okay, mi sentite bene adesso? Tutto a
Adesso
posto?
sì, adesso
Ok,
sì.
prego, fai la domanda, Anima, prego, prego.
Ora gli chiedo più o meno un attimo cosa, che è un po' la domanda che faccio generalmente, cosa l'ha avvicinato al mondo della musica estrema, quindi appunto metal estremo e tutto quello che ne consegue. Now my question is about your musical approach generally, because you start pretty young, as you said in the previous answer. What brought you to actually uh, be a black metal musician, or what made you take the extreme metal route in music?
For the most part, I'd never had any sort of exposure really to, I guess, to black metal for a very long time. I remember the first, I guess, I mean, I grew up listening to classical music, as a child, obviously, like, growing up with Beethoven, Mozart, all the big names, Nietzsche, and I mean, Chopin and all that stuff. So for me, it was kind of just something that I was always attracted to. But I didn't really get into black metal until way later, when I would say the first record I ever bought, with my own money, was the Sarcophago album, which was Inri, which was this Brazilian black metal band that, there was a period where them and a few others were basically making music. But it just happened to be that when I went to the record store, I just happened to see this album, and for some reason the front cover, even though it's, in my opinion, it's not something exactly. It was kind of, you can tell that it was obviously low quality. It was kind of like a DIY type thing.
Yeah, kind
But
of
for some reason, it attracted me. It just attracted me for some reason. Like, I looked at it and I was like, well, this looks interesting, and I bought it. And obviously, it wasn't a vinyl. It was a record. I mean, because obviously they didn't have any CDs at the time. So when I obviously put in the record, it blew my mind, because it kind of just changed everything that I thought I knew about music. It kind of, I guess you could say, it opened the doors for me, because for me, it just, I just never heard music like that before. And I think the first thing that attracted to me the most was actually the vocals. Even to this day, I've always said that, there's still no one that I can think of that sounds like, Wagner from Sarcophagus. So this album in particular just really sunk in with me, and just really, I guess you could say, inspired me to want to. But I didn't, at the time, I didn't know that it was called black metal. I didn't know that there wasn't even a name for it. I just loved the sound of it, and how it's, how it was very like raw produced. And I didn't know that this genre even existed. I just thought, okay, well, this is nice. I actually would like to, see what I can create, if I can even imitate this sort of genre, due to the fact that I was very limited with my instruments, with what I had available. I tried my best, excuse me, to replicate as much as I could. And that's when, I guess, it came out of nowhere. I just started writing music. It just started happening. And it wasn't until, I'd say, until I started kind of discovering little by little certain bands that were kind of popping in. I don't want to start dropping a whole bunch of band names, but I would say Sarcophago was definitely the first that, I guess, drew me, opened the door for me, essentially, kind of introduced me to this whole different world. But as far as, with music, it kind of made me want to write, not only just about how I felt, but just especially the experiences that I was going through at that time. So, a lot of people say that music is, or, the greatest musicians are often the saddest or the angriest ones, because it's true. Real musicians that write music from the heart, you can tell. And so I only wrote music whenever, or I still write music only whenever I feel upset or when I'm having anxiety or when something's happening or something's just not going right. I can't just write music for the sake of writing music.
Mm-hmm. So you basically took the opportunity to actually get out emotions, obviously when you need to do that, by taking an approach to actually be able to, let's say, sound, quote unquote, sound like Sarcophago, like by the rawness and the filthiness in the sound.
It wasn't necessarily the rawness that attracted me. It was more of just the idea that somebody was able to, express how they felt, through a microphone. Like I said, for me, and I'll be, even though it's my favorite album, I'll be the first one to tell you that the quality is terrible. Like I'm not even really a fan of the quality. It's just the feeling you get when you listen to it, that it's just, whether if it's angry or sad or, it was mainly that actually that truly just that I was able to experience. It wasn't necessarily listening to the music. It was the experience of hearing these songs that just really stuck with me. And obviously I felt connected with it. I felt like I could relate to it because during that period, obviously I was going through a lot of terms, especially when you grow up, poor, you don't really have a lot of options, and things happen in life where you just either, some people turn to drugs and some people turn to alcohol. Me, it just happened to be music, and I wanted to, try to see what I can do creatively, through art.
Ok, allora praticamente gli ho chiesto, appunto, per chi si è collegato adesso, cosa l'ha portato a fare il tipo di musica che fa, e cosa appunto l'ha portato all'ascoltare, ad avere a che fare col black metal. E praticamente la storia è stata che di per sé non è che abbia iniziato a fare black metal per, diciamo, la voglia di fare black metal, perché all'epoca non sapeva neanche cosa fosse il genere di per sé, perché il primo approccio con la musica estrema, questa qua, è stata con l'album Inri de Sarcofago, nel senso che appunto lui era molto molto giovane e appunto all'epoca non c'erano ancora lettori CD in ogni casa, quindi lui aveva trovato appunto il vinile ed è rimasto affascinato da questa copertina molto di bassa qualità, fatta quello che noi diremo quasi, fammi passare il termine, a cazzo di cane, nel senso molto un approccio DIY, si viene a dire. Ed è rimasto stupito da quella musica, perché era così grezza, nel senso del suono di produzione che è stato utilizzato, dal grezzume della musica, che appunto è rimasto sconvolto, e soprattutto dalla voce. E lui stesso dice: effettivamente ad oggi non c'è nulla che mi abbia fatto dire che come voce suoni meglio di quella di quell'album là. E comunque lui stesso è il primo a dire sì, qualitativamente parlando fa schifo come album, cioè come produzione si intende, però appunto nell'insieme gli è rimasto talmente tanto in testa che l'ha portato a dire: io voglio fare qualcosa di simile, ed ovviamente con le limitazioni, quelle del caso, perché comunque lui è cresciuto ascoltando musica classica, quindi parlava di Beethoven, Mozart, Schopenhauer, Chopin, tutti quei capistipiti della musica classica. E appunto ad oggi quella sorta di onestà nel suono l'ha portato a fare quello che fa adesso, perché comunque ha ribadito il concetto che anche dal punto di vista di limitazioni, anche giusto perché lui tratta di tematiche tanto tanto personali, perché comunque ha detto che è cresciuto in un ambiente familiare povero, quindi il vantaggio di combinare quel suono con le tematiche che ha trattato, appunto ne ha, perdonate il gioco di parole, ne ha tratto vantaggio.
Perfetto, salutiamo Dolor della Existencia dalla Polonia, ci sta seguendo, ha scritto su Instagram, quindi ci sta seguendo calorosamente. Salutiamo Enki, salutiamo Peter. Allora, Mr. Morbid, se andiamo sugli album, i full length degli Happy Days, quanto possono differenziarsi rispetto alla massa del Depressive Black e quanto è complicato fare un determinato sound intimo senza sapere le parti appunto personali, però quanto può essere veramente strano mettere in risalto il proprio io attraverso la parte artistica di questo genere.
Okay, by talking about your full lengths, how do you think that they can stick out within the other bunch of the SBM releases that are around the world as of right now? How difficult it is for you to actually be able to compose something that can represent your real self? Obviously, not necessarily going into details, but like, there's anything specific that you want to have with you when you're composing, or it's just a thing of the moment?
So that's actually a really good question. When it comes to inspiration, things can happen. You know, I definitely don't. You know, I would say as far as like inspiration goes, like I don't force things. I just let things happen naturally. I don't sit down like with a guitar and say, okay, I'm going to write a song. That's just never worked for me. It might work for other people, and that's great, but that's the reason why my albums take forever to compose and to be released, essentially, because I don't just, I can't rush art, essentially. I can't just rush something and be like, all right, let's do it. There's moments where, something as little as looking at moss on the floor or mushrooms on the floor, even that are rotting or that are even blooming, that'll suddenly just inspire me. Anything that's in regards to like nature in general can inspire me. I mean, it really could be anything. I could just happen to be walking and seeing the sea or something, or I could just see, something terrible could happen in front of me. It really, there is nothing. I can't really say specifically that, yes, this is what inspires me. It just happens. It depends on the moment. It depends on many things. I mean, without going too personal, I can definitely tell you that, the album, specifically this album, Save Yourself, unfortunately, it's an album that, it's definitely got mixed reviews. There's some people that love it, some people that were not a big fan of it, and I could understand why. But this album in particular it's a pretty special album for many reasons. But this album I actually wrote, I wrote this album when I was homeless. I was homeless for almost 2 years, and I didn't have a place to live. And, that's one of the reasons why, unfortunately, the quality wasn't exactly the best, because, with the limited access I did have to record this album, I did my best that I could to try and mix. And again, I'm not an expert in mixing and mastering. I didn't know anybody. I didn't have the connections that I do have now where, people can help me out. This is just, I was doing this DIY for a very long time. And so when it comes to recording these earlier albums, they just came from moments where either I was feeling upset, feeling angry, or going through some very difficult times in my life that, inspired me to want to write something, or to jot something down, or, I can't just write something for the sake of writing. It has to be that something occurs, or, it's the only way that I've been able to even write music. The day where I don't have that inspiration anymore, obviously I'm putting an end to the band, because I don't believe in forcing things. I don't believe that you should pretend to be something that you're not. And so I only write music based on what's happening currently in my situation.
Ok, praticamente ha detto che di per sé la sua musica è il suo mettere se stesso, nel senso che non prende situazioni in cui, ok, devo scrivere musica, quindi mi metto là e scrivo. L'ispirazione può arrivargli letteralmente in qualsiasi momento. Lui ha detto persino quando vedi una falena o un fungo per terra, succede qualcosa di brutto davanti a te, può prenderti, nel senso non ha quel approccio al devo trovare l'ispirazione. E quindi in quel caso là inizia a scrivere, ed è appunto uno dei motivi principali per cui lui ha detto i suoi album ci mettono un'eternità ad uscire. Infatti appunto tra il penultimo Save Yourself e l'ultimo uscito qualche mese fa En Enfer Jerenier sono passati 7 anni, quindi comunque passa un po' di tempo e appunto tutto fa brodo, tra virgolette, perché ad esempio anche l'album, quello appunto che avevo appena citato, Save Yourself, del 2016, lui l'ha scritto che era un senza tetto sostanzialmente, quindi aveva poco accesso a contatti per fare mix, master, e anche la qualità ne ha risentito abbastanza. Però di suo c'è da dire che appunto anche le situazioni quelle peggiori possono tirare fuori qualcosa di diciamo così positivo, nonostante alla gente quell'album là ci sono state risposte positive e risposte negative, appunto anche dovuto in base a questo. Poi lui ha sempre avuto questo approccio, diciamo così, abbastanza DIY, appunto, quindi è rimasto comunque nel corso degli anni, cioè cercato di far di tutto per poter mettere il suo pieno se stesso nella musica.
No, perché io condivido, perché è arte quello che fanno gli Happy Day, sono riusciti sempre a creare veramente dei gioiellini. Prego Adimar, a te la parola.
Now I would love to talk about the equipment, because you said that you have struggled a bit through the years with your like your knowledge about mixing, mastering, and what changed through the years with your equipment from like the early 2004 days until now?
Well, when it comes to the earlier albums, there was a period where I was essentially borrowing instruments from people that I knew. And so, unfortunately, because again, I was, poor, I didn't really have any money to suddenly buy instruments to start recording music. I just happened to have a friend that just happened to have a guitar. And so I started that way. And then I started finding programs online to try and, to replicate some sort of a drum beat. And same thing with the bass. I just happened to borrow instruments from people that I knew that happened to have instruments. And so for those earlier albums, it was the only way that I was able to kind of somewhat create an album that was that again, that the end result was just these first like 5 albums. So the thing too is that unfortunately, because I recorded these songs and these, I would say the first 3 demos in the first and second album, I recorded them originally back in between 2004 and 2005, but unfortunately, because I didn't have any contacts or connections with labels, these albums were not released until 2007. And so that's one of the reasons why, unfortunately, there was a period where it was very discouraging that I didn't know what to do because nobody was able to hear my music. I tried my hardest to kind of, and this, again, I had zero knowledge of technology. I wasn't somebody that was tech savvy or even knew how to use a computer. It was just something foreign to me, obviously. So I had to learn everything through trial and error. And so it was the only way that I was able to kind of somewhat learn how to network and somehow create like, the MySpace page, because back then it was MySpace. And so it was just, I didn't learn these things until later 2007 when I realized, there's such thing as a social platform, and there's such thing as, in the beginning it was just kind of just me. Nobody knew who I was. I just wrote music for myself essentially, and using a drum machine that, before, of course, I was contacted by a drummer later on and stuff. And, we started talking, but the earlier recordings were definitely just instruments that I would borrow from people that I just happened to know at that time.
Ok, praticamente lui io gli ho chiesto com'è cambiata la sua strumentazione più o meno nel corso degli anni, perché appunto con le difficoltà che ha avuto all'inizio, e praticamente ha detto che appunto nel primissimo periodo lui doveva farsi prestare gli strumenti da suoi amici, quindi appunto questo suo amico gli aveva prestato la chitarra, un altro gli aveva prestato il basso, quindi queste cose. Per quanto riguarda la batteria, appunto i primissimi demo che sono fatti con una drum machine, quindi lui ha dovuto cercare su internet dei programmi che gli permettessero di creare un ritmo e comunque provare e famoso trial and error, quindi tentare e fallire, e questo appunto gli ha permesso un po' alla volta di ingranare. Però appunto i primissimi materiali, quindi parliamo appunto dei primi 3 demo, sono stati registrati appunto intorno al 2004. Questi sono rimasti là, diciamo, per se stesso, senza nessuna, come si può dire? Sì, faceva musica per se stesso inizialmente, poi col tempo, appunto, parliamo del 2007, siccome lui non è mai stato un grandissimo appassionato di tecnologia, poi ha scoperto come sfruttare MySpace, perché all'epoca andava molto MySpace appunto, e non avendo neanche contatti con nessuna etichetta che potesse far uscire il materiale, poi con queste robe ha avuto contatti con l'etichetta, ha avuto a che fare con un batterista che quindi gli ha permesso di iniziare a comporre la musica più seriamente per quanto riguarda quello che fa appunto con Happy Days.
Morbid, quanto può essere avvicinabile il progetto Happy Days all'interno di un'arte controversa, estrema e instabile allo stesso punto, e quale sarebbe il disco che potrebbe creare questa colonna sonora della instabilità mentale di chi ascolta gli Happy Days, e quanto un instabile può capire e comprendere il concetto visuale e lirico della band stessa.
Okay, so let's try and put Happy Days into a movie-like context. If you would need to compose the soundtrack for a movie that deals with like mental, let's say mental issues, but it's not the proper term, with the themes that Happy Days talks about, what would that music sound like, and how would you picture that movie to be like? like visually talking in the context of the music. And last thing, how do you think that one person relating to those themes the movie is talking about can actually relate to that whole big concept that is the soundtrack and the movie?
So when if it essentially, I mean, the movie itself, I could imagine it being just if such film were to ever be exist, and if they were to contact me and say, hey, we're making a movie, we would like to use essentially your music for this particular movie. Essentially, I would have to watch the movie first to even see if it's even relatable to what I make. How this movie would look, that's it's one of those. This is actually a very interesting question, because I never thought about even remotely about my music even being part of a movie, or even like creating a movie based on like the themes of what my albums are about. I could definitely say that this particular movie would be very intense. A lot of intensity, a lot of emotion, and in the sense of just showing the ugly side of what humanity really is, because I tend to have a very I guess I don't want to say nihilistic, but very negative outview on how people are in general. And growing up, obviously, in the U.S. doesn't help the fact that unfortunately, I come from a country where there's always just there's drugs, there's crime, there's just a bunch of just horrible things that occur most of the time in my own country. So you wouldn't have to look too far to find trouble. Unfortunately, it's the reality. But if there were to be a film that I were to suddenly make, or have my music, it would definitely touch upon the things that I just mentioned about my own country, essentially, and just kind of show that unfortunately these things exist, but if we can make people aware of it, then hopefully there could be some kind of way to change that. I don't know how things would change. I don't know how we'd be able to change it, but when you raise awareness of something, at least people can gather together and maybe someday realize, hey, maybe we shouldn't do these things, or maybe we shouldn't, So this particular film would definitely display a very just, visceral, very negative, just, almost demonic, side of people. Because again, my music is based on my own struggles. My band, the band itself is just, it's my personal journal. It's my personal diary. I only write things that occur to me mentally, that I've experienced, personally. Again, without going too much into like my own personal experiences, but it would definitely be a very intense and dark film.
Because I was actually thinking, by seeing the themes you were talking about, that maybe something along the lines of Cause of Death Life, because from my personal perspective, it's so various in terms of themes, because it talks betrayal, it talks even drugs. So I guess it's the most fitting one. Maybe would it be the right pick to go for if you had to bring like an existing album of Happy Days?
I could definitely. I mean, it's open to interpretation. Anybody can listen to my albums, and I'm not saying that my opinion is the right one, or it's everyone can choose and decide whatever it is that whichever album they think is better. And I would be open to it. I would say, yeah, sure, I could see how that would work. But if it were me personally, I would probably say it's between either Save Yourself or the new album En Enfer J'irai, because those two albums, I think, are the most, I mean, those are the most personal for me, that, I really did spill my heart out on those two albums. And I did talk about things that I never did talk about before, that I actually did. And I did debate whether if I should even, talk about these things or not, or if I should just not mention it. But a lot of people have been wanting to know a little bit more about like my past and kind of like know more me as a person. And I've always told people, if you want to get to know me, listen to my albums, because that's how you're going to get to know me, because I, there's nothing filtered. I don't, put a mask on. I don't say, most of in my personal life, I tend to just, give people what they want to see, in the sense of like, most people want you to be a positive person, and it's easy. It's easy to, to put on a mask and say, yeah, everything's great and everything's fine. But Happy Days is truly, this is who I am. And so if I had to choose, it would probably either be Save Yourself or the new album, as the soundtrack, because those two albums really, they dig deep into the topics that I just discussed.
Ok, praticamente innanzitutto ha detto che dovrebbe vedere appunto di cosa si va a trattare appunto nel film, cioè lui vorrebbe vederlo prima di poter dire ok, la mia musica è adatta per quella tipologia di film. Quello che lui ha detto, che appunto probabilmente andrebbe se dovesse lui immaginarsi un film, sarebbe molto probabilmente un film che ritratta quello che è gli Stati Uniti, perché lui appunto viene dagli Stati Uniti, e è talmente tanto vario, perché si parla di sofferenza, di droghe, abusi e tutti quegli aspetti negativi che ci sono in quel paese enorme che sono gli Stati Uniti. E appunto, se dovesse lui scrivere la colonna sonora da zero, sarebbe sicuramente un album molto cupo, molto aggressivo, molto negativo da quel punto di vista, perché appunto avendo lui vissuto un ambiente molto brutto, diciamo così, quello che senza entrare nei dettagli,
certo.
sarebbe sicuramente così come album. Però se dovesse prendere un album già esistente, sarebbe sicuramente o Save Yourself oppure l'ultimo appena uscito, perché sono quelli che vanno più dentro quelle tematiche. E un'altra cosa che lui ha detto, siccome sono anche quelli molto più personali come tematiche, appunto questa musica può permettere anche alle persone di dire se vuoi conoscermi, ascolta la mia musica, punto. Perché ha detto sì, tutti fanno presto a mettersi una maschera addosso e dire no, ok, va tutto bene, tutto perfetto, tutto fantastico, però invece in realtà non lo è. Invece Happy Days è per l'onestà, per la sincerità, e quindi appunto lui vuole che questi album onesti vadano a rappresentare delle situazioni altrettanto oneste al 100%.
Perfetto. A te la prossima domanda e poi leggiamo i commenti e le domande dei nostri spettatori. Prego, Adime.
Okay. Now we'll be going with another question, then we'll be going through the comments and giving you questions as well from the ones looking at the live stream right now. My question is, recently you have played your first live show as Happy Days in France, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember if France or Belgium. And how has been that experience like? How it has been to actually get on stage and play your music that you've been composing since you were 15?
So yeah, when it comes to the live show, it's funny because it was actually in Belgium. It was in Belgium where the show took place. It was the very first Happy Days show. I mean, going from when I started at 13 years old until now, to be honest with you, I never expected at all to even be, to even get as far as I have so far. And I mean, I'm not even far at all. I mean, compared to other bands that have gone way, that are brand new, that have gone way beyond what I can even reach. But I mean, to get to where I'm at now it's eye opening. It's very. Do you understand that expression when I say eye opening?
Yeah.
It's very eye opening for me because, I mean, I'm grateful. I don't, I had zero intention of ever playing a live show with Happy Days because, well, back in the States, there's just not a lot of musicians that even, the genre itself is just not, it's not liked by many people. It's not a popular genre. Even famous bands that are huge like Mayhem, they even have a hard time even playing in shows in the US because it's just not a genre that people appreciate. In the US in general, most people there just unfortunately don't appreciate art, and it's just the music does not sell. And so when something doesn't sell, obviously it's not going to be popular. People are not going to take it serious. Unfortunately, we have this weird mentality of just, it's the dollar sign, it's the money that counts. Art doesn't bring in the paycheck, doesn't bring money in. So unfortunately, because of this, a lot of bands in the U.S. suffer. They suffer, and they a lot of times just don't go anywhere because you're in this giant country where it's supposed to be this land of opportunity, but most bands unfortunately just don't go anywhere. They don't get any further than they need to because of the fact that their own country is limiting them from reaching their full potential. So we're playing at Belgium was a huge honor. It was a huge honor for me. That first show was just really, it was very special to me. It was something that I'll never forget. It was very emotional. It was a very emotional moment for me because it was the first time that I realized that I was able to, display my art, and live in front of like actual fans. And I know we have another show coming up right now in Switzerland in July. And I know we also have another show in October, which will be the first French, I guess the first show in France. And then we have another show in Austria, which will be opening for Psychonaut 4. And so I'm hoping in 2024 we can play in Italy. If there's any promoters right now listening to me in Italy, get in touch with me because I'm trying to reach over there as well.
Well, we can actually talk about it after the interview, because it would be an honor to have you here in Italy to play a live show with Happy Days. Praticamente lui si è confermato, gli ho chiesto appunto, siccome un mesetto fa ha fatto il primo concerto live in assoluto con Happy Days, mi ha confermato anche Bimmer Boy che è stato in Belgio al Black House Assault. Quindi ha detto che appunto nella sua vita non si sarebbe mai aspettato e non ha mai avuto la volontà di portare la sua musica dal vivo prima di questo periodo. E lui ha detto sì, negli Stati Uniti tutto sembra fantastico perché la vedono come la terra delle opportunità, però ha detto che di per sé, per quanto riguarda il proporre arte, di per sé non ne fa niente, quindi lui comunque negli Stati Uniti non sarebbe riuscito, perché ha detto che quello che conta là è il dollaro, non è l'arte in sé. Infatti ha detto che ci sono band grossissime tipo i Mayhem che già là fanno fatica e non purtroppo vende, e quindi se non vende la gente non li vuole. Quindi lui ha confermato l'arte non ti porta lo stipendio, non ti dà da mangiare. E ha detto che però questa esperienza che ha avuto è stato molto gli ha fatto aprire gli occhi su quello che è appunto la sua arte, perché ha avuto la possibilità di portare la sua musica dopo tutti sti anni davanti a gente che effettivamente si interessa di quello che fa, ed è stata una cosa molto emozionante per lui. E appunto ha ricordato che ci sono altri show in programma, ce ne sono uno in Svizzera, ce ne sarà un altro in Austria in apertura di Psychonaut 4 e ce ne sarà un altro in Francia, quindi sì, ci sono un po' di concerti avanti e ha detto che comunque gli piacerebbe venire a suonare in Italia, quindi ha detto che se c'è qualche promoter che ha intenzione di appunto portarli in Italia, più che volentieri, quindi lui è apertissimo.
Ok, allora cominciamo a leggere i primi commenti appunto di Mr. Bernard Boy.
Okay. Beamer Boy says, I love Save Yourself, different from other releases and different sound-wise, more aggressive and brutal and raw, but it's a great album.
Thank
quindi per chi non avesse capito, Beamer Boy ha detto che appunto adora Save Yourself, che è diverso dagli altri album che ha fatto uscire dal punto di vista di suono, che è molto più aggressivo, brutale e grezzo, ma è comunque un grande album. Enki says, I agree that album really is unique and it also helps, at least for me, helps if someday you feel down and depressed or any other negative feelings. All Happy Days album is pure gold.
I appreciate that. Thank you guys a lot, seriously.
Praticamente Enki dice che conferma con quello che ha detto Beamer Boy, quindi che è un grande album, che è unico, che aiuta, almeno dal suo punto di vista, nel momento in cui ci si sente giù e che si ha sentimenti negativi, e che questo come anche per tutti gli altri album di Happy Days. Then Beamer Boy is still asking what's your favorite album that you've made up to now?
That's a very difficult question because each album that I've written, even though despite having terrible quality and maybe not the best mixing and mastering of the earlier albums, but each album is very, very personal and very close, very special to me. But if I really had to choose one, I would probably say the new album, because I feel like that is for me kind of that is the exact sound that I was looking for as far as like what Happy Days was, what I was trying to aim for since the beginning of the first previous albums. It was definitely the type of sound that I was going for. It's the first French album that I've written. It's also the first album where I worked with a really good friend named Kenny, who's essentially, one of the unofficial member for Happy Days. He also helps with writing now and stuff. And there's certain songs that he's written. There's certain songs that I've written. There's certain songs that we've written together. It's just an album that I've, even though I do have someone who obviously works with me and writes, adds his own flavor and his own experience to the album, it's still overall me who might arrange certain things or who might change certain things. But working with him has been honestly it's been a privilege, and he's fantastic. And so this album definitely is something that it's exactly what I've been trying to capture, or what I've been trying to do since the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Ok, praticamente Beamer Boy gli chiedeva quale fosse il suo album preferito e ha detto che per lui di per sé è difficile poterne scegliere uno che sia uno, perché ogni album ha la sua peculiarità da un punto di vista sentimentale, diciamo così, affettivo su quell'album. E quello che però risalta più di tutti, se dovesse sceglierne uno, è appunto l'ultimo, perché lui ha iniziato a collaborare con Kenny, che è un altro chitarrista, e praticamente c'è iniziato ad essere quella sorta di avanti e indietro di idee che appunto si modificava da un punto di vista compositivo. Ed appunto il primo album che lui ha composto in francese, quindi ancora più legato da ogni punto di vista.
Ok. Altro argomento?
Sì.
Ah no, scusami.
No, stavo andando avanti. Poi ti dico io eventualmente quali leggere. Anki says, for me personally, it's Cause of Death because some tracks there literally spoke to me in a strange way. I felt connection.
Interesting. Yeah, I think a lot of fans would agree with him as well, because I know that this particular album really did kind of, I guess you could say, set forth the sound of Happy Days. I feel like that was, during that time, was the best sounding album that I wrote, and it really was an album. I mean, the fact that it's a 2 CD release album, it was definitely an album that really pushed Happy Days to the next level, in my opinion. So I could definitely agree with him and see why. Not just him, but most of the fans always flock towards Cause of Death Life, because it really was an album that, defined, I guess, the Happy Days sound that I've been looking for, and it was kind of a glimpse of what it was going to be like in the future for me.
And I need to agree with them as well, because when I got to know you as Happy Days, that has been the album that appeared on my Facebook, if I'm not mistaken, or YouTube even, and that, I guess, it's the album that put you under the radar in terms of music and knowledge of the band, more than the previous releases, I guess.
Totally agree.
Praticamente Anki diceva che appunto Cause of Death Life è il suo album preferito, perché ha detto che alcune tracce gli hanno letteralmente parlato e ha sentito una connessione in qualche strana maniera. Morbid ha confermato la questione, perché ha detto che anche per lui è stato l'album che ha spinto Happy Days per i suoi limiti, nel senso che all'epoca è stato l'album che lui ritiene che suonasse meglio musicalmente e anche proprio da un punto di vista generale, e quell'uscita appunto, che è in 2 CD, è molto molto particolare, e ha definito quello che è poi il sound di Happy Days.
Ok,
Allora, sì,
no,
volevo
sì.
leggere la domanda di Stefano, esatto.
Perfetto.
Stefano Black Forest asks you, how do you think that talking about certain topics in your music becomes useful in your daily life in terms of self-awareness? And he says, personally, I think that certain emotions can spread inside of an individual in a negative way if they don't find the right way to find a way to get out.
I think that for people like me, and I don't know if maybe you can relate to this or not, but I think for people like musicians like us who put everything on the line, who give their 110% every single time, we're the type of people, I think we're never, and this could obviously change in the future, I don't know, I try not to think too much about like what will be in the future. I just try to live as much as I can in the moment, in the present time. But I feel like as of right now, I don't see any sort of, for people like us, there's not really an escape. There's not really any sort of change. There's not really any sort of, there's always something that, that is following us. There's always some sort of, feeling of just, we're never 100%, like negative free, or, we're always 100%. We're always just, there's always something in the back of our mind, always, coming at us. And as far as being, self-aware of things, I mean, as you get older, you see things differently. I see things differently compared to how I used to see them before. Obviously, my perspective has changed on life and in general, and what I consider to be what the meaning of life can be. But as far as, just for me, the only thing that I know that is certain is just, trying to live my life as how I would want to live it, instead of, listening to what other people tell me what to do as far as what I should be doing or what I should be, focusing on instead. But, my definition of, of life is not going to be the same as anybody else's. We're here obviously to do something. I do believe that, each of us does serve some sort of purpose. What that purpose is, I don't know. That's up to you, for you to discover. I can't, none of us can do it for you. For me, that as far as, I think over the years I've learned to not trust as much as I did before. Again, living back in the United States, unfortunately, it's caused me to, to have a very just negative approach in life. I've noticed that, people in Europe are a lot more different. They're a lot more generally, I don't want to say happier, but they're more aware of what's happening around. They're more, there's definitely a much more positiveness, I guess you could say, towards like people, even if, yes, there are problems here, obviously, and there are problems in everywhere, but it's just where I come from, man. It's just a black hole. It's really bad. I mean, I hate to talk bad about my own birthplace, but it's just, unfortunately, because of, everything that I've been through back there, it's caused a lot of long-term problems for me, mentally, physically. And so I just have this it's caused me to now, I guess, like, not trust anybody, I can't get close to anybody. I can't, and this is about as personal as I want to get from here, but I'm trying to change that. Obviously I'm trying to see what I can do to be more, I guess, like more positive with people, and just kind of sort of slowly starting to kind of trust. But again, it's a struggle, and I think for everybody else it will always be a struggle, because we'll never be 100% okay.
Allora, ha detto che di per sé, tornando alla domanda, quella di Stefano, che sì, ognuno appunto vive la propria vita come riesce, nel senso che ognuno ha comunque le proprie esperienze. Cerco di fare un attimo un riassunto di quello che ha detto effettivamente. E praticamente quello che appunto lui ha vissuto sicuramente è diverso da tutte le altre persone. Ad esempio, lui adesso, col fatto che è qua in Europa, le persone sono molto più diverse rispetto a quello che è negli Stati Uniti, nel senso che sono molto più consapevoli di cosa sta succedendo, anche se sì, ovviamente ci sono magari delle cose negative che vanno avanti, ma sono appunto più consapevoli. Invece negli Stati Uniti è appunto più un buco nero, quindi tutte queste cose gli hanno portato quando stava negli Stati Uniti, e ha detto che appunto per lui è brutto parlare male del paese in cui è nato, però effettivamente è così, e ha detto che è un buco nero, che gli ha portato dei problemi sia dal punto di vista fisico che mentale, che adesso sta cercando un po' alla volta di sistemare. Appunto, questa è la maniera più personale per cui lui riesce a entrare nel dettaglio, e appunto sta comunque cercando di migliorare. E appunto diciamo che Happy Days comunque è la valvola di sfogo per tutta quella roba negativa, quindi sì, tutto qua.
Leggiamo l'ultima domanda di Agamante, poi partiamo con le ultime due domande e poi congediamo mister.
Sì, allora Agamante is asking the show that you played that evening in Belgium, so you confirm it's the one that actually left you with the most positive emotions in terms of memories as of right now?
Yes, I mean, granted, it's the first show that I've ever played for Happy Days, and that I've ever done. So I can't say. I mean, I could say for now, yes, that it's the most emotional, because it's the only show I've done. I don't know what it's going to be like when I play France, when I play Switzerland, when I play Austria, when I play Italy, when I play China. There's I can only say that most likely it'll be just as good, if not better. Because for me, a show is it's not just a concert for me. It's not just something that, you know, you get on stage and you just play your guitar or sing and that's no. Like for me, this is where I get to display, you know, who I really am as a person. And, you know, for me, it's a very emotional thing for me because, it's hard to explain, to put into words, I guess, but you know, the feeling you get when you get on stage and when you actually, you know, strum your instrument or when you scream, or, you know, there's a split second where I feel like, you know, for an instant, all of my anxiety, all the problems that I have, everything that's killing me slowly inside, that's mentally just ruining me, is gone. And I guess, I mean, if I were to, I guess, kind of compare it to something, it would be kind of like achieving nirvana in Buddhism, I guess. But it's just, yeah, it just, nothing else matters except that moment. And for me, that's something that I've been trying to achieve, you know, my entire life, is just, you know, turning everything off mentally and just being in that moment. And when you're in that moment, I think that maybe there's a chance where you can truly be happy and actually feel some sort of happiness, you know. And that's, again, that's my own perspective. That's my own journey, I guess, my own, you know, my own goal in life. But being on stage, it's more than just playing an instrument. For me, it's something that, you know, that truly, that takes away the demons, I guess you could say, from me.
Ok, praticamente ha detto sì che appunto per il momento quello è l'evento più importante per quanto riguarda la sua vita a livello di emozioni, perché appunto togliendo il fatto che è stato il primo concerto vero e proprio di Happy Days, c'è stato tutta un mix di emozioni che di per sé è difficile da poter descrivere, però ho detto che se dovesse riassumere la cosa è praticamente raggiungere quasi il nirvana, perché ha detto comunque di per sé lui uno show non è un semplice concerto e finita là che sia, è praticamente stato quel culminare di tutte quelle emozioni, di tutta quell'ansia, tutte quelle cose da un punto di vista mentale, chiamiamolo così, che lo attanagliavano, che appena inizia a suonare, appena inizia a urlare, vanno via. C'è solo quel momento e non c'è altro che conti, se non quello appunto che sta succedendo. Ovvio, detto che non sa se ovviamente sarà meglio o peggio di quelli che saranno appunto i prossimi show, però appunto sicuramente questo avrà un posto particolare nel, diciamo così, nel suo cuore.
Perfetto, oggi ricordiamo ancora, ragazzi, che abbiamo Mr. Morbid degli Happy Days, quindi una delle migliori band, Depressive Black. Le ultime due domande nostre, poi congediamo Mr. Morbid, perché veramente un'intervista molto molto interessante sta avendo, oggi intervista super chill.
Decisamente.
Allora, la domanda che mi viene da porre è questa. Gli Happy Days come potrebbero riuscire nel trasformarsi in una nebbia fitta, quasi pericolosa per l'essere umano, e allo stesso tempo qual è il full length dei Happy Days che potrebbe ricordare un animale feroce ma in attesa prima di vedere la propria preda e ucciderla?
Ok, ripetimi la prima parte della domanda riguardo alla nebbia.
Ok, la prima parte della domanda è questa. Gli Happy Days come riuscirebbero a trasformarsi in una nebbia fitta, pericolosa per l'essere umano?
Okay. So the question now is a little bit tricky, so I hope I can like translate it as properly as possible for you. And it's divided in two parts. The first one is how do you think that Happy Days can transform its entity and in a sort of fog that going to terrorize the mankind?
I feel like for my music was never about, at least to me, in my opinion, it was never about terrorizing mankind. It was never about destroying man, because mankind is already destroyed. Mankind has already been. There have been people before us that have long destroyed humanity, and so for me to add more, as we say in English, like add more fuel to the fire, just doesn't change anything. Contradictory. I know it's kind of a contradictory to what I'm about to say, but my music, which obviously talks about negative subjects and negative emotions, is actually because I actually want to connect with people. It sounds strange, but I actually would rather heal people through music than for them to be more destroyed and more put down. Now, like I said, I know this is kind of a weird paradox, but my intention was to never destroy or ruin people's lives or through my music. It was actually the opposite. It was for them to not feel alone, for them to not feel that they're the only, that they can't connect with anybody or can't connect with my music, or that they can feel that there is some sort of like small hope, even though in my music I can be, obviously it's very negative, and it's actually the opposite of me saying, well, there is no hope. But again, it's just about connecting with people and helping them, understand that they're not alone in this world. They can, for me, it was always about connecting with people and healing people through music. It was never about destroying people, or because again, they've already done that. Life has already done that. With everything that's happening now, with wars and crime and criminals and just all kinds of crazy stuff. I mean, the last thing people need is another band that's just saying, yeah, like screw everybody and whatever. And again, there's already enough ugliness and darkness in this world. For me, it's more, I'm hitting it from a perspective of, no, let's, like, yes, it does exist, but you're not by yourself in this war, and we're in this together.
And this quote unquote fun enough actually replied also to the second part of the question, which is I will tell you anyways. It was like, how do you think that an Happy Days album can be some sort of like a prey that is going to catch its own food? But yeah, since you already talked about like healing through music, and so I guess it's like still relatable to what you said before.
Yeah.
Praticamente ha detto, rispondendo diciamo così a tutte e due le parti della tua domanda, che di per sé Happy Days non è riguardo l'attaccare, il terrorizzare, spaventare, quello che vuoi, riguardo l'aggressione. Nonostante si parli appunto di tematiche negative, lui quello che vuole far passare di concetto è che di per sé lui vuole aiutare a rigenerarsi con la musica, quindi non a un semplice guarda che schifo qua, che schifo là.
Certo.
Lui vuole dire, noi siamo in mezzo a questo assieme, non siamo l'uno contro l'altro, perché ha detto comunque non c'è nulla da attaccare, distruggere, quello che è. Lui essere umano ci ha già pensato, quindi lui dice non ha senso che io vada a provare a attaccare qualcosa. E appunto tutto si basa sul volersi migliorare, sul rendere se stessi migliori e a stare meglio. È abbastanza contraddittorio tra quello che passa nei testi e quello che è poi la risposta che ha dato, ma che di per sé è la realtà, appunto perché lui vuole trasmettere la realtà di quel momento, quindi è contraddittorio come anche no.
Quindi prima e seconda parte, sia della nicchia che degli animali. Ok, a te l'ultima domanda di chiusura del rito del Calice Nero. A te sbizzarti il manto completo.
Okay, now I'm going with the closing question for the evening. So once again, thank you for being here and for spending your time with us this evening. Again, it has been a real pleasure to have you in the terms of to have you here, and I'm going to read what if grazie. The D1A6LO says that the music that you made with Happy Days actually is still alive because of your music. So seriously, there's plenty of people that thanks you for what you've done with Happy Days as of right now. So really is one of the highlights of our channel as of right now, and seriously, thanks again. Now I'm going with the closing question, which is if you need to listen to Happy Days with some sort of alcoholic beverage, because il Calice Nero translated to English is the black chalice, and what would you pour in that chalice that's alcoholic, or maybe not necessarily, that you can sit and listen through an Happy Days album or the Happy Days discography?
I think that when it comes to this might be my favorite question, honestly, but this particular question is very. I would rather them, if each person from each country in the entire world has this particular chalice, I would rather them pour something that is native to their country, because even though we're so different, we're actually quite the same when it comes to connecting and music. And I think that for me, I'm really big on not forgetting where you come from and not forgetting your roots and not forgetting where at the end of the day where you're from. And so I think that each person, what if they were to listen to Happy Days, I would want them to drink some, whether if it's alcohol or non-alcoholic, I would want them to drink something that provides them some kind of comfort, without again with the drink, to listen to Happy Days. I wouldn't want it to be some kind of drink that would make things worse. I would rather it be something that actually makes them happy, because happiness is not, in my opinion, happiness is not something that is gigantic. It's not something enormous. It's not something that is overwhelming. It's actually, life to me is about those small moments of happiness that really make life worth living. And I think that pouring a drink into a chalice is one of those small moments of happiness. And I think that's what we should live for, is those small moments of happiness. I want to say really quick, thank to all of my fans. Thank you so much again for hearing me speak and spilling my heart out, and especially to the Italian fans, grazie mille a tutti. I really appreciate you guys a lot. And yeah, like I said, I hope that I could provide some sort of comfort during these difficult moments, especially nowadays.
That's a very deep reply, if I should be honest with you. Seriously, as you said earlier, is actually quite wide, eye-opening from my point of view. So thanks again for sharing this with us.
Thank you guys.
Thanks a lot again. Praticamente ha detto che se dovessimo mettere appunto questa, vabbè, gli ho fatto la classica domanda di rito, quindi cosa metterebbe in quel calice di alcolico, non necessariamente di alcolico, per poter ascoltare Happy Days. Lui ha detto che se tutte le persone del mondo, e adesso appunto è abbastanza particolare come risposta, se tutte le persone del mondo dovessero avere questo calice in mano e dovessero metterci qualcosa dentro per poter ascoltare Happy Days, dovrebbe essere qualcosa di nativo del loro paese, ma non solo, ma dovrebbe essere qualcosa che gli porti una sorta di comfort, perché ha detto sì, tutti noi con i nostri problemi, tutto quello che c'è, siamo collegati dalla musica, quindi è molto particolare. E di per sé, appunto, collegandoci anche alle domande di prima, l'obiettivo di Happy Days è quello di voler che gli altri si sentano uniti, quindi deve essere qualcosa che porti del bene, contrariamente a quello che viene trattato nella musica. Quindi che sia alcolico o non alcolico, deve essere appunto qualcosa che quando bevi stai bene, non che quando bevi rischi di star male o di provare emozioni ancora più negative. Devi essere felice nel mentre. Quindi devo dire una risposta molto molto profonda dal mio punto di vista.
Allora, le news le abbiamo dette prima, appunto, verso Happy Days. Noi ringraziamo Mr. Morbid perché è stato veramente un onore immenso e grazie della disponibilità. Da quando l'ho contattato veramente è stato sempre disponibile, sempre ha risposto, quindi è stato veramente un grandissimo onore e speriamo di averlo in futuro su una seconda parte. Allora, tutto il Calice Nero, tutto lo staff del Calice Nero augura il meglio sia nella vita privata di Mr. Morbid e sulla carriera degli Happy Days, perché meritano e oggi abbiamo avuto veramente un musicista umano e di grande, grande, grande talento e merita tutto il supporto.
Once again from Il Maestro, thanks again for being here, and we and all the staff from Calice Nero are wishing you the best in your personal life and in the Happy Days career as well. And we truly hope that that's going to be as you wished. Seriously. So thanks again for your time, because you've been like so down to earth even with him since he contacted you. So seriously, thanks a lot for the time spent here. And if you want to stay like 5 minutes more after the interview is done, in the backstage, let's call it backstage, it will be a pleasure. Seriously.
Sure, absolutely. And I wanted to say thank you guys as well. Thank you very much for having me. The honor is actually mine, because it's not often I do interviews. I'm actually very it's hard for me to do interviews, even though it's over like a podcast type deal. But I appreciate you guys being patient and especially being very understanding and catering to me, since essentially because of my anxiety, unfortunately I'm very limited to do interviews as much as I'd like to. But I just want to say thank all of you for having me here, and hopefully maybe in the future, in the far future, we'll come back again.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're always open, because I guess there's even more to discover for Happy Days and to talk about even. So seriously, the pleasure has been all ours. So thanks a lot. Praticamente ha detto che ringrazia anche lui tantissimo, ringrazia tantissimo tutti i fan che sono venuti qua a vedere questa sorta di podcast, chiamiamolo così.
Sì.
E praticamente ha detto che sì, è stato un onore, e appunto ci ringrazia tantissimo perché ha detto che siamo stati molto comprensivi, perché lui ha una sorta di ansia per quanto riguarda queste cose, e di interviste non ne rilascia tantissime, quindi appunto, ci ringrazia veramente veramente tanto. Ok, so
un abbraccio e alla prossima.
So see you soon, and we'll catch up in the backstage over here.
Perfect. Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Bye Morbid.
Bye.
Ok ragazzi, allora, perfetto. Grazie a te Nicola. Veramente intervista interessante, cioè a livello umano, a livello artistico.
Sì, decisamente. Quindi c'è veramente una cosa fantastica. Poi Sì, sicuramente ci sarà un'altra parte per scoprire molto di più di questo che è il progetto, perché appunto non mi aspettavo delle... No, me l'aspettavo, però sentirle dire delle risposte così oneste alle domande è sconvolgente.
Ma anche la risposta alla classica domanda del Calice Nero. Io sono rimasto a bocca aperta,
Sì,
cioè non ho niente da dire,
decisamente.
perché ci sono delle interviste che rimani senza parole. Ok, adesso chiudiamo ragazzi, perché Adimer deve andare via, non so
Sì,
dove, forse
adesso stiamo qualche minuto con Morbid nel retroscena, così...
Ok, perfetto.
Ok,
Allora, ragazzi, niente. Ragazzi, è partito, non so come, non so cosa è successo. Allora, è partita completamente, non so come. Comunque, ragazzi, questo è anche il bello delle dirette. Allora, ringrazio Adimer, veramente grazie di cuore. Adimer della tua
grazie a te.
disponibilità, è sempre un vero onore nel fare dei video interviste con te. Allora, ci vediamo direttamente lunedì, ragazzi, con i Crowbar, Lounge Metal e poi Funeral Mass, appunto, martedì. Ragazzi, vi auguro una buona notte, il sacro codice non è 000, la morte vi renderà liberi e il grande spettacolo non si fermerà mai. Au revoir.